guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. तो कुछ दिनों पहले मैंने अपने YouTube community को promise किया था that I'm going to be experimenting a lot more with my content. And so here I am with my first podcast series. Intro थोड़ा सा लंबा है, but please guys skip मत करना, थोड़ा सुन लेना. The podcast is called Back to the Start. And honestly, when I gave it this name, I didn't think that I'd also feel a little bit like I'm going back to the start. But if you ask me honestly, that's my current frame of mind. So, back to the start, पर हम क्या discuss करने वाले? Well, we're going to be discussing a lot of first experiences. First job, first celebrity interview, first crush, dating, and whatnot. पहला एपिसोड पायलट है. इट्स अ बिट ऑफ एन एक्सपेरिमेंट. तो कमेंट सेक्शन में खुल के मुझे बताइए व्हाट यू लाइक, व्हाट यू डोंट लाइक, हु यू वांट टू सी ऑन द शो एंड व्हाट टॉपिक्स वी शुड कवर. एंड विद दैट, let's get into the first episode of Back to the Start. So guys, I thought long and hard about what my first episode of this series should be. Okay, तो मुझे लगा कि it should be something that's personal to me और जिसके साथ मैं काफ़ी contribute कर सकूँ, right? So, the first episode today is going to be my first celebrity interview. And sitting with me are three faces I think you guys might recognize. Rajiv Masand, Anupama Chopra and Malishka Mendonca.
हम अपने लिए खुद तालियां बजाएंगे क्योंकि हम इसके आदी हो चुके हैं.
हाँ, इसके पहले कि मतलब मैं कुछ बहुत सारा एक्स्ट्रा इंट्रोडक्शन दूँ इनके बारे में. आई फील लाइक इट्स बेटर दैट यू गाइज इंट्रोड्यूस योर सेल्फ. और मतलब मैंने स्पेसिफिकली नोट्स में भी कहा था कि प्रेप दिस. सो ओके, अनु लुक्स रेडी. अनु, क्या आप तैयार हैं? प्लीज इंट्रोड्यूस योर सेल्फ टू माई ऑडियंस.
So I'm Anupama Chopra and I have done this for 30 years.
Wow.
And incredibly, I still love it. Pata nahi kyun, but I do. And I'm the editor and founder of Film Companion.
Woohoo! All right, well done. Self-deprecating line was completely kept out of it, but it's okay.
And literally, we are our own baja gajas. This is exactly what radio is known for, right? We have people who actually go woohoo, and people think that's their job.
No, Malishka, that's just you. That's just you. Nobody else has.
Thank you, Rajiv, for joining me. No,
nobody else has people bajawing talis for them. Nobody.
It's an oral medium. What to do?
Okay, Malishka, go ahead.
So, I'm Malishka Mendonca, contrary to popular belief where people think my first name is RJ. It is not. Thank you. But प्यार से लोग मुझे मुंबई की रानी कहते हैं because not only do I do interviews which I love, but the interviews are a break from what I'm doing generally, which is talking about the city and stuff. But I've been doing this now for about 17 years. I cannot believe it. I'm on the radio, but then I also identify as an actor. Thank you. So someday I'm hoping that not only, you know, like I can't interview myself, but ये जो दो दिग्गज हैं.
अच्छा, मैं नहीं करूँ तुम्हारा इंटरव्यू.
अरे हाँ, तू
कोई बात नहीं, मैं चली जाती हूँ. I mean, क्या फर्क पड़ता है?
तुम किंगमेकर हो, तुम उनका इंटरव्यू कर रही हो जो इंटरव्यू करते हैं. समझा करो जानम. # बोलने के पैसे.
Okay, chalo. We will be Malishka's backup clap people.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rajiv.
I'm Rajiv Masand. I used to review films and interview actors for more than 25 years. I was told I could be by those actors that I was quite savage when it came to reviewing their performances. I'm also proof that karma does exist because now I work with actors and help them choose what films to do so it can kind of give them an enduring career. Thank you.
Okay, but we're here to talk about my first celebrity interview. So I thought I'd kick things off. Since apparently two of you have had all three actually have had a difficult time ये याद करने में कि उनका पहला interview कौन सा था. Okay, so I'll kick mine off.
Yeah.
I was an intern at Aaj Tak. And you guys might remember that there was this wonderful film that Ram Gopal Verma made, which was Ram Gopal Verma ki Aag.
Rajiv's favorite.
We will talk about that. तो हुआ क्या कि basically मुझे भेजा गया था press conference को cover करने के लिए. Okay, because intern press conference cover करेंगी and आज तक was also a media partner. और उसके बाद होने वाले थे अमिताभ बच्चन के interviews. Now, unfortunately or fortunately for me, the senior reporter who was coming to interview Amitabh Bachchan got stuck in heavy duty traffic. This is a hotel near the airport. तो फिर मुझे आता है एडिटर का कॉल कि लगता है कि आपको ही इंटरव्यू करना पड़ेगा बिकॉज हम मीडिया पार्टनर्स हैं और अमिताभ बच्चन का इंटरव्यू तो हमको करना ही पड़ेगा. and this is true, I went to the loo and I was like, I'm like, do I need to take a dump right now? Because I'm sorry, like I'm just feeling like the pressure of the world in my stomach and everywhere else. How is it that my first interview in life, or the first time I'm going to sit across from someone, is going to be Amitabh Bachchan? So yeah, long story short, a trembling young Janice was led into a room where Amitabh Bachchan was of course fully ready, and he looks at me and he says, "Mohtarma, baith jaiye." And I think he could tell कि I was trembling like a leaf. So then he says at one point, he's like, "आप कुछ खाओगे?" And I'm looking at him, I'm like, Amitabh Bachchan is offering me food. And then he says, "हरा भरा kebab काफी अच्छा है." It is also the day I realized that Mr. Bachchan is vegetarian. But let me just say that I'm so glad that we weren't uploading interviews on YouTube then, because I can promise you it was an absolute shite interview. I mean, even Mr. Bachchan must have been like, हमने आज तक के साथ partnership क्यों किया? ये लड़की कैसे सवाल पूछ रही है? इतने ordinary. Thankfully, I've come a long way from then. So yeah, mine was iconic, and I think that's why I remember. But I will always remember Amitabh Bachchan asking me, हरा भरा kebab काफी अच्छा है. So that was my first interview.
Yeah.
Okay, who wants to
Mr.
go
Bachchan.
next?
Because you said Amitabh Bachchan, I think my first interview was Abhishek Bachchan.
Okay.
But it could also be Akshay Kumar. I'm just trying to figure out which is the more interesting story to tell you, but because but it is because see, this is a radio interview space also, right? This is before we really had digital happening and stuff like that, and yet it is radio. So now I think after a point, film stars were so used to the medium where their faces are being seen, it was very difficult for them to understand how to speak for radio. So there's a small little recorder जो हम इस level पे hold कर रहे हैं. So most of the times, if I may say so, pardon me, you can edit this if it is, but they were talking to their crotch. मतलब it was so soft.
Definitely not editing that line out. That when they were doing radio interviews, they were talking to their crotch.
What I mean is, it was like this. It was a mumble. I literally feel like we taught film stars how to do radio interviews. There's this interview that I'm doing with Abhishek Bachchan. I'm a brand new thing, Kaula Mal on the scene. But I'm well known by now because I'm doing a lot of like conversation with the city, but not necessary actors. But I feel, I remember, it was like there was a shoot going on and it was like this, ऐसे बाकड़ा जो बिल्कुल बीच में था, वहाँ पर कुर्सियाँ लगी, अभिषेक बच्चन और मैं.
What is बाकड़ा?
Like a plank kind of thing, but उसके ऊपर कुर्सियाँ लगी हुई थी. So we're basically center of attraction. And suddenly the whole shoot stops. And everyone turns in like this to look at this thing. And I'm like, oh God, it's a radio interview. It's supposed to be quiet. Nobody's supposed to be looking at you. I was so nervous, but you can't be nervous because like, when you're the interviewer, है ना, mic तो तुम्हारा है, मम्मी की आंखें, mic तो तुम्हारा है. So I'm sitting there and I think by this time I'm asking him questions and I think the first thing I asked him, and this was prepped by, you know how we have people who prep, then you realize that you should prep by yourself. It's the first question or something that was on this list, and I'm meeting Abhishek Bachchan and he's saying, "Acha, I've heard of this girl, who is she?" And I'm like, मैंने सुना है रिसर्च के मुताबिक कि आप जिम बिल्कुल नहीं जाते, आपको जिम I have no idea. I am so glad he was gracious enough, though he did give me, he was like, ये आपसे किसने कहा? मुझे जिम कतई पसंद है, मैं रोज जाता हूँ. And I'm like, and then more than anything, I'm looking for my producer. My producer's hiding behind those sofas because he's like, oh, she's going to kill me. But that interview, that was the beginning of it, and that's when you also realize, I guess, you learn कि अब संभालना है, अब अपने आप को भी, ईगोज को भी, जो तुमने रायता फैलाया उसको भी.
कि मतलब आपने अभिषेक बच्चन को पहला सवाल ये पूछा कि आप जिम नहीं जाते.
Then I decided, from that was actually the day I also decided कि मम्मी की आंखें लोगों के प्रेप की फाड़ के फेंक दो, तुम पूछो सवाल जो पूछना है. So Abhishek Bachchan, I love you. Thank you very much.
That is a golden rule. खुद का प्रेप खुद ही करो, बॉस किसी और पर मत छोड़ो.
मैंने अक्षय को ये भी पूछा है ना कि वैक्सिंग करते हो क्या? बहुत ऐसे मतलब हाँ ये वो वैसे.
What was the answer?
I think he did this to me. But I was a child. We're all allowed to make mistakes. Now I won't ask him vaccine.
Why? I would love to ask that question to people.
No, I would ask him.
In fact, I feel like वो सवाल के ज़बाने मतलब बाहर वापस आ रहे हैं. I would love to ask Abhishek also. आप जिम जाते हो अभी?
Yeah. No, I think now I would ask him कौन सा brand of wax use करते हो वैसे. So it just changes with time.
Rajiv is so quiet. He's not even laughed out loud.
I have no such fun.
Kuch bhi,
Incident, no
Rajiv.
memory.
Please stop being so politically correct. Chalo, we're going to you now.
You know, I know it wasn't the first, but the first one that I remember, I think the first was with, I used to be with the papers. I think I was at the Times Group, and I think the first ever celebrity I met and interviewed was Twinkle Khanna. It was a film she had done called Jaan. But I genuinely have no memory of it except that I went to
One
Dimple.
second, is this the Jaan, oh Meri Jaan?
With Ajay Devgan?
Oh God, I only remember that
You know, it was
song,
another
that title track.
that you were born and remember it is a
That
is
you
a big
have
deal.
memory
Tere
for
seene
everything.
mein
No, I don't remember that.
Mere
That's
seene
impressive.
mein
That's
mera
really
dil.
impressive.
Stop
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
Alag,
This may be the best part about this anecdote, but I don't remember. I just remember going to Dimple's house on the beach, and I don't remember what it was about. But the one I do remember is meeting Sridevi during Judai. I remember it was at that time we used to do set visits, and it was in Banjara Hills and on a
Hyderabad.
in Hyderabad in a
yeah.
studio in Banjara Hills. And I remember being taken with a cartload of journalists to interview Sridevi, and I remember she was on the set, and I remember her being quite terrified of seeing so many journalists. I remember her politely mustering up a smile. I mean, like it used to be like the celebrities used to be sitting there, and all the journalists would be here, and one by one you would be taken. I remember her reading a book or pretending to read a book because she didn't want to engage. She was really shy, and it didn't come up from a place of arrogance or a place of disrespect. It was not something she loved doing. She just didn't love talking. And remember, you could see she wasn't really reading that book. It was a crutch to not have to look at the journalist.
I have a question. Was she reading the book while talking
No,
to
no,
the
no,
journalists?
no. While you were waiting, it was in between.
Okay,
it was in
okay, so
between
it's like
shots.
she's sitting over there
You know,
now.
like other actors, if there's a bunch of, at least at that time, this was a time when it was not so stage managed. So it was a time when if there were like 10 journalists there, then the actor would come and sit with you and engage you while in the middle of shot and stuff, give their shot, come back, and then one by one you'd go in for interviews. Sridevi was not particularly social. Not particularly, she was not social. That she didn't love that. But it was so sweet to see her with a book and not really reading that book was just because she didn't want to engage with you. And then when it was my turn for my interview, I remember I spoke way more than she did, which probably still happens.
Which happens with all of us, Rajiv.
Way more than her. No, she was, but she was lovely. You know, you knew it came from a place of just social awkwardness and not being most comfortable speaking. And then years later, one got more opportunities to interview her, and that hadn't changed. She just didn't love talking. Some people don't love speaking, and you make more effort. And because it was print, you can do so much. But when it's television, it's really hard when someone isn't speaking because that's what it is. So so then then you talking more than them is ugly, filling those empty spaces. So yeah, that's the one I remember because I was just such a massive fan. I think that was so exciting to be sort of sitting across from your idol and knowing that she has no interest in talking to you at all.
I mean, at this point, I'd just like to say that many of our hearts have been broken when we've eventually interviewed our idols because they have been nothing like what we imagined them to be. But, Anu, we haven't come to you. Anu said very proudly at the beginning of this interview, 30 years, Janice, mujhko bilkul yaad nahi hai. So,
Yeah, it's
Anu
hard.
is going to
Very
make an
hard.
educated guess about who
We
her
were the
first
first
interview.
interview.
No, so first though, I genuinely just don't remember. I worked like early first job right out of college was Movie Magazine, which doesn't exist anymore. Then the first official job, like I went to the States, I got a master's in journalism, came back. First official job was First Sunday and then India Today magazine. So this I remember was for India Today magazine, 1995, first interview with Shah Rukh.
Oh, okay.
Anu had to go with
Had
the
to go.
Shah Rukh, yeah.
Anu
Because
had
like all
to
of us
go
have
with a
a
Shah Rukh
first
story.
interview with
You know,
Shah
if I had to
Rukh's
place a bet about which interview Anu would talk about first, I would say Shah Rukh Khan. But
Has to be.
Yeah.
But is there a better interview?
Is
Yeah.
there
Is there a better
It's true.
interview?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about what? Almost 30 years ago,
Yeah.
I'm talking to this guy. So he was already, Karan Arjun, Dar, Bazigar had released.
Huh.
He was the upward, like furiously upwardly mobile, wearing a purple suit on the sets of Ram Jane.
Purple.
Purple suit, head to toe in purple with a gold necklace. And
I can
lot
sing
of
this-
detail.
I can sing the song actually.
exactly.
I know the song.
Ram.
And then it gets better. What he's saying is even more flamboyant than what he's wearing. Okay, he's like, I'll never be the character. I'll always be Shah Rukh Khan playing a beggar, playing a this, playing a that. Like it was just like, what? Like, and you didn't even have to ask. He would just talk.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that. And then it was a two-page story in India today called Daringly Different.
Nice.
How can I
But,
forget
yeah.
this?
Daringly. For a second, I was like, did she mispronounce it? Then I just got it. I'm like, no,
Daringly different.
Yeah. Wordplay, pun. Well, nicely done. Yeah. Daringly different. All right. So I feel like mine was the most embarrassing then, guys. Or maybe second was like Malishka who asked Abhishek Bachchan कि आप gym नहीं जाते?
No, many embarrassments have happened. Yeah, ऐसे थोड़ी.
हाँ, उस पे ही आएंगे next ना. Obviously, embarrassing interview, सबसे embarrassing interview कौन सा है?
Listen, I have a Bachchan story. So
We all have Bachchan.
you have to. So this is incredible because now I'm talking about 10 years ago. I do this show called The Front Row for Star World, in the second year of which they decide I have to do it also in Hindi for Star Plus, where it's called Star Verdict. All right. My Hindi is not the best, so I'm literally just losing it. I'm taking tuitions, okay? I'm taking tuitions in Hindi.
Right now?
No, then. Okay. So
You're taking tuitions in Hindi?
Meaning a guy comes every other day to my house.
Anu,
and
tell us whose dialogue coach that
Anu,
was.
yeah,
Tell us, Anu.
I thought that this person is working in the industry.
No, I don't know. He said he also had coached Katrina, but one can't be sure. Okay.
Moment, pause. Katrina Kaif ke Hindi coach और अनुपमा चोपड़ा के Hindi coach. Same guy. Someone please tell us who.
You can be in the movies now.
देखो जी, I don't know कि ये सही था कि गलत, but I'm actually taking tuitions and my kids can't stop laughing because they take tuitions as well, but mom's also now taking tuitions. And then the first day of recording comes and who's my first guest in Hindi? It's Mustard. Okay, you can just imagine.
That's a tough
so
one to
I have
start with,
sweat patches here. I've done the English one and he's just like, just sitting there sort of like nothing can break him. Almost bored, because he's done this for 40 years. He doesn't care. Then you switch to Hindi and the man just lights up. And he's speaking in the most incredible Hindi and I'm just like trying not to just keel over because at one point he says, or it's vatanukulit kabre mein. And I my eyeballs must have just popped out. So the guy, my right and my ear, it's just air conditioned. It's just air conditioned. Just calm down. Just go with the flow. Ask him something. Then he said, "Aap to बैठी हैं अपने तक तो ताऊ उसपे." And I was just like, "What are you saying, sir?"
These sound like dialogues out of Jodha Akbar.
Can you imagine?
आप तो बैठी हैं अपने तक तो ताऊ.
And I survived it.
Prep for Hebrew.
I survived it.
Amazing.
And he was fab. He was fab. So that's my favorite Bachchan story. But you can imagine the embarrassment. I don't know what he's saying.
Anu, I take your embarrassment and I swear I can raise it into 100. I'm not even kidding.
Tell us.
It's a long story, okay, guys, so bear with me. So anyway, to 2012, Warner Brothers is sending me all the way to LA, and I'm the only Indian journalist going, okay, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be sitting with Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan, Anne Hathaway. What is happening? My life is like, my mind is blown, right? And they also did a little PR press release that, we are sending, they were sending representatives from all across South Asia. Are you making that face because you were also in that running? No. Because someone told me that Rajiv really wanted to go for this
That
junket.
could have been how.
And he did not.
Wants to interview Nolan.
That's a delicious junket.
Someone really bitchy said कि हाँ राजीव को भी जाना था इस पे, but we're sending times now, so you better remember this. These were the days of rubbish competition, guys. Anyway, so my passport and my visa comes last minute, and I am like at the airport, and one fan group in India, because they got to know that I'm going to meet Christopher Nolan, basically gets in touch with me and says, ma'am, can you take a parcel? We're huge Nolan fans. Can you please take a parcel of gifts from us? And I'm like, absolutely no way. I don't have extra luggage. I'm carrying a shitload of things for Warner already. So मेरे पास जगह ही नहीं है. So they said, ठीक है, एक t-shirt ले जाइए हमारे लिए जिस पे हमारे नाम है, और and they'd made like a full like Batman t-shirt. No, I said ठीक है. They met me at the airport. I packed it in and I've gone off. At the LA airport, and you guys have. You both have definitely been to the LA airport. Have you also been? Yes. So it's a tiny airport, right? Subah 7 baje flight land hui hai, and all the people in front of me are going, and then mine, the guy says, and I'm about to do he's like, please stand behind the red line. And you know how rude they are. And I'm like, what happened? Ma'am, please stand behind the red line. Someone will be here to escort you shortly. I'm doing such a bad accent. Anyway, I'm made to stand and all I can see, everyone on my flight is finally gone. 9:30 press briefing. This is 7 o'clock-ish in the morning. And I see an inspector walking, like a proper inspector walking from the other side of the airport. He comes to me, takes me. I realize I'm being taken to one place where there are only immigrants. Mexicans are crying, people from other parts of our Southeast Asian subcontinent are like, but I don't know, why have you stopped me? Someone is saying, some inspector is asking another person, when did your sister enter this country? Did she have this disease then? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be that journalist who gets sent back without even entering the country. Okay, so I'm shitting bricks at this point. Finally, after an hour of making me wait, they call me in and they're like, how did you get a 10-year visa? I'm like, I don't know. Someone in your Bombay office fucked up. And I really didn't know. And they're like, you shouldn't have gotten a 10-year entry and exit. You should have just gotten like a 6-month visa. And then I hear these giggling female officers. They're like, but are you really going to be meeting Christian Bale today? Because I had to give them my invitation letter. And I'm like, yeah, and you guys are really, they're like, oh my God, can you tell him we love him? I'm like, not after how you've treated me today. This is not even as bad as how bad it gets. I rush. It's 8:30 by the time I get. I'm like, I'm so late, I'm so late, I'm so late. I've cried the whole way, called my mother, all of this jazz has happened. And I've gotten dressed fully, and in my hurry, just as I'm getting out the door, I remember, oh, that Indian fan group had given me that t-shirt, let me take it with me. I've taken it and I've run. You know how the junket interviews happen? 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute. And my last interview was Nolan. Okay, so I'm talking to Nolan's manager and they're very strict about not taking pictures and this and that. And I'm like, please, these Indian guys have sent it all the way. Let me just give it to him. She's like, okay, if he's okay with it, I'm okay with it. So I finished the interview and I give him the t-shirt and I'm like, these are from your fans in India. You don't know how loved you are over there and you don't know how popular your films are. We love you. Thank you so much. Da, da, da. And I fuck off from there. Now I go back to the hotel room. I'm like, interview's done, despite everything all done. And I had a friend in LA who was taking me out for dinner. Okay, it's 3 degrees or 4 degrees in LA. It's cold-ish. And I'm just like, okay, like opening my suitcase and I'm like, she's calling me. She's like, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes. So I'm getting ready and I'm like, where are my thermal tights? Oh okay. I'm like, where are my black thermal tights? Okay, and I'm like, what is this black thing? It is the black Batman t-shirt that the fans sent for Christopher Nolan.
What a come hither you
1 second. So I'm like, I remove everything. I'm like, no, Janice, you could not have done this. Ye nahi ho sakta. I realized I gave Christopher Nolan, at that time, the biggest filmmaker in the world, a pair of my used thermal tights.
That's fab.
That is so cool.
And he's still trying to figure it out.
And I said, your fans in India love you so much. ये उनकी तरफ से है, as a symbol of their love, and he must have gone.
Thank you, Janice. Represent India. Thank you.
Well done.
I gave him
No wonder he did very few interviews when he came to India. Remember? He's like, those weirdos are not. Certainly not meeting the fan groups.
I wonder what I'll get next.
You know what my biggest thought was? I'm like, what, did it have holes in it?
Oh my God.
Used for sure.
Nothing can beat. I'm sorry, if someone has a better embarrassing story.
No, this is great.
Yeah, this is like, if I ever write a book, this one's going in the book. And if I interview Nolan ever again, this is going to be like a story I tell.
It's going to happen on camera because the embarrassment has to be high stakes,
yeah,
where you're like publicly embarrassed.
Yeah.
I had one when I went to meet Dwayne Johnson. I was interviewing The Rock in LA again. I don't even remember what film it was.
We're going international now, guys.
We're dropping a few
names
names
like
now.
Bollywood chodo,
and this was in the room,
Hollywood
so it was embarrassing. So. Also, those are such quick interviews, right? 5 minutes, you have to ask everything that you can and pack it and get out. And those were the times when you have to ask that one token India question. And I remember, I don't know, for some reason I asked him about dance because he must have done some interview where he spoke about dance or something. And you're really just trying to get all your questions in. And you should be, when you should actually be paying attention to what they're saying. And I wasn't. And I was like, hey, what's your favorite dance move and stuff? And he must have been like, what the fuck is this guy asking me about dance moves? But anyway, he was sporting. He was like, the horizontal hula. I'm like, oh, great. Would you show it to us? So he's like, no, maybe not. So I was like, oh, okay, come on, we'll show it to us when you come to India. And he's like, we'll see. And I'm like, okay, and the interview's done, and I'm walking, and you know those rooms, they're like really small, and there's lots of people out of frame. His entourage was like giggling and chuckling like this, and then I'm like thinking, and then it strikes me as I'm walking out of the room that horizontal hula is not a dance move. It's a sexual position, and I've said, maybe you'll show it to us when you come to India. So that was not that. So I made quite the ass of myself. The lesson is, listen to what they're saying. Use brain and mouth at the same time.
At this point, one Indian journalist has given a pair of used thermal tights to Christopher Nolan. Another one has gotten a response that says horizontal hula, which is a sex move. Okay. You've not told your embarrassing story.
I started with my first interview, which was an embarrassing story, but I can't tell you more because I remember Mr. Bachchan. Okay, but
we all have just done stupid shit in front of Mr. Bachchan. Yeah.
But this is a good one because it wasn't I don't know, it's something I'll tell my grandkids if I have them. So this is when this is Pa. Okay. So Mr. B we share a birth date. So that's about it. But he knows it and he's quite fond of me and all. This is what I've heard because Abhishek has told me, despite me telling him, do you go to the gym or no, that tum Pa se seedhe pooch lo na. Anyway, so he's doing these interviews and during these interviews he's called us to his place, right? Now he's doing these interviews as Oro? Come on. Oro?
Yeah, not Ori.
Not Ori. That name. I don't know why I said that. It's so
if you got the joke, please let me know in the comment section. Rajiv.
I don't have a high five for that one.
Rajiv, high five. High five, Rajiv. Come on, yaar.
I didn't say anything.
I also wanted
Oro, not Ori. Anu, you got the joke?
I would say nothing.
It's amazing that everyone did. Wow, it's pop culture, bro.
This is amazing that we all got it.
So Oro, coming back to, so he's as Oro, but what he's done is he's only worn the teeth, right? So he's not entirely looking like Oro. He's looking part Mr. Bachchan, part, I don't know, something else. Just now let your imagination. But it's still Mr. Bachchan in there, but he's cute. Like he's got that whole Oro thing going on. And there's one thing on Mr. Bachchan that I must tell you, I'm sure all of us know, but he changes according to the movie he does. So every interview that I've ever done with, like if it's a Sangharsh naam ki picture, then Mr. Bachchan is in that role. If he's doing something funny, like that movie where he was riding the motorbike.
Buddha hoga
Tera baap. He is that person and you can talk to him like that. So he's sitting there in front of me and he's being so cute, Janice. He's talking as Oro and I'm so mesmerized because now Mr. Bachchan is not in front of me. And it's going into these conversations and I'm going closer and closer and birthday with him and I'm like, oh, Oro, sorry, no really. Oh, Oro, may I kiss you? And I do not believe Mr. Bachchan is sitting in front of me. I actually go up and he's like, no, I haven't brushed my teeth. And I plant one on his cheek. And I sit back
you shouldn't have wanted me to kiss Oro either.
He is.
You kissed Mr. Bachchan. He was dressed as Oro.
He was dressed as Oro and it's something I will never forget because
what did he do?
He was Oro. If he was Buddha hoga tera baap, or if he was someone else at that point, I might have gotten like, oh, but he was very sweet about it because he was Oro. Mr. Bachchan becomes the character. So don't. I think it was, I'm not sure if it'll go down. Now, I don't know what you're making me do. It'll seem like there was no consent involved there. There was. It was cute little consent. And I was like, oh, this is little Oro, and I kissed him on his cheek, and he's like, I haven't brushed my teeth. That's about it. And it was quite sweet.
That's okay.
I've lived to tell the tale, so we must be okay. Thank you, Mr. Bachchan. I met him again, given him birthday gifts, birthday kisses, hugs. Thank you.
Okay, but you know, I also, one of the things like now that all our interviews are on the internet and like even now podcasts are video casts because we must have a camera on everything. I'm curious, what is an interview you've gotten the most amount of flack for?
Oh, that's easy.
I think I know yours.
Yeah. So that's why please, I would love to see what.
What is an interview or like, and also did you expect to get flack or did you not expect it?
So I got flack for the Sandeep Vangar interview, but I expected to. Kabir Singh was already so
controversial.
So controversial, so polarizing. It was a massive hit, but critics, and many ad film companions just hated it. And of course, sort of, there was that whole like conversation about the misogyny of it, the kind of ugliness of it in terms of its gaze of women, and then to be sitting with Sandeep Banga and giving him a platform to say, well, explain yourself, what were you trying to do? And
that's not fair, because I feel like that's an interviewer's job. You can't, I mean, did you get flack because of, and why should you get flack for interviewing a guy and putting his position? I mean, I think like it explains.
I think for both, like, why weren't you harder with him? But
I'm going to be honest, I did think that was, I mean, it wasn't like, and I think I vaguely remember having this conversation with you. I was like, why? Because you had this guy, and right, it was a very, very polarizing film. Like, you could have been harder with him, especially on some of the things, I feel like, especially when he went after your colleagues.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I regret that. And I remember sending you a text and apologizing that I should have been harder and I should have pushed back.
I'll tell you something.
Absolutely.
Who don't.
No. So it was. He was rude about Rajiv. He was rude about Sucharita, who at the time worked with me, and I didn't push back enough. Yeah. And I didn't sort of stop him right there, which I should have. And then later I was like, okay, that wasn't okay. And I remember sending Rajiv a text and saying, I'm really sorry.
Before. I mean, but I also think, and sorry, I'm butting into her story.
No, please butt in.
And now we're getting sort of a little serious. I feel like, are you doing a Karan Thapar interview? Or are you doing a film interview? If it's a Karan Thapar interview, that is, your confrontation is what makes it. But also, as a journalist, I want those answers. And if that's the stand you take, you're probably not going to get the honest answers, because then you're actually putting that person in that position where he's going to hold back. And he's not going to perhaps tell you and reveal who he really is. So to me, that interview actually was very good, because if the job of an interview is to tell me who this person is, and in that case it was, because he's not someone we knew a lot about before. His film is the only, and a film doesn't necessarily tell you exactly who that person is, but that interview did. So I think it's I think it's a little hard, you're being hard on a journalist when you're telling them that you need to be hard. I think if you ask the questions, your job is not to, unless you position yourself as someone who's holding people accountable for.
But also, Rajiv, I'm not by nature confrontational.
No, neither am I.
My interviews are never that.
Yeah, but it should. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That expectation from someone who's a film journalist and who's asking that person, and I think in many cases, if people formed an opinion of him based on what he said in the interview, then the interview did its job. Yeah. Because you understood who he was, you understood what he felt, you understood why that film was a product of who he is and how he thinks, and that was it. So I think it was a little harsh when people go after
in a sense, you're saying he anyway revealed himself.
And that's the job of the interview, right? Yeah. And it did that.
But I'll tell you what, that interview, right? And again, I agree with Rajiv 100% that you know what kind of interview style you have. Like, whenever I do a show, my entire agenda is for my guests to have a good time. Whether it's a podcast, whether it's social media stuff, Janice, whatever it is, I want my guests to have fun along with me. So you're right, it's not a Karan Thapar kind of confrontational or like serious, a ta-dang kind of interview. But I'm saying that I just feel like you were giving him such a platform to explain himself, and he was sitting with you, who had also reviewed the film. I just feel like he didn't need to take those below the belt pot shots.
Absolutely.
And I feel like everything else that you allowed him to say, great, revealed himself, just when it comes to standing up for our own community, because in general I feel like there's not enough unity. We don't always stand up for each other. We don't always like speak up for each other. And I feel like that's the area, at least for me now that I think about it, is like, if anyone's going to speak about people who are my peers, I'm going to be like, screw you. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a platform, but that doesn't give you the right to insult my peers.
I think it was damn good that it was an interviewer like Anu, because I think a less competent interviewer wouldn't even have got that much out of him.
That is true.
So, I mean, thank God it was someone who was able to draw him out in the way that they did, and whether you like him or not is a separate thing. Whether you like what he says or not, but at least it told me about a guy I knew nothing about.
Correct. At this point, I'm going to say that we are, because I mean, now we've spoken about this interview so much, we will link it somewhere here. Okay, so you guys, in case you're like, ये कौन से interview के बारे में इतना debate चल रहा है, please यहाँ पे जाके देख लो. But yeah, so that was an interview. I mean, I feel like we all also had conversations. And so I think it did its job also in a way, na? Like, you got the hate, I'm sure you also got a tremendous amount of love though for that interview.
I don't know. Never looked at the comments.
Which is how you keep your sanity.
That is 101, rule 101. Don't read the
Rule
comments.
101, just don't read the
Don't
comments.
read the comments.
I can't. Janice, I live with a bodyguard. If I start to read comments also, it'll be over.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fair. Rajiv, do you have one where you felt like you got a lot of hate?
No, I can't. Not that I can remember. I mean, small things. I remember interviewing Juhi Chawla a couple of years ago for a show I did called Women We Love, and I was very clear I did want to speak to her about, because I mean the reason, I mean it's called Women We Love, and the reason that we picked those subjects, we only did 4 or 5, was because of how they've survived, all sorts of things. And with Juhi, I was very clear I wanted it to be about some part of it to be about I mean losing her mum on set in an accident, losing her brother very tragically, and I knew that
I'm
was
sorry,
going to be.
I don't know this.
She lost her mum while she was shooting on set in an accident
Abroad.
and it was a car accident, and she lost her brother very tragically over years. He was unwell, and I had already told her that this is going to be a very revealing conversation, and she. And I wouldn't say broke down, but got very teary and got very emotional, and yeah, broke down during the interview. And I paused briefly and continued with that line of questioning. And I remember getting some amount of hate. How insensitive is this? And I wouldn't have got to talk about why she's a strong woman if one was not able to ask about what she went through and what those moments were like, and how you survived that. But I also think that this leads to a larger thing where we look at things out of context. People that are watching are so in a hurry to pull people down that they're missing the larger point. I don't think I'm an insensitive person, and I don't think I was reveling in making her uncomfortable.
No.
And I don't think she would have continued answering those questions if she felt like I was being voyeuristic or exploitative. I think she got the larger point, and I think if anyone watched the whole interview, you got the larger point. But nobody, when you make that comment, you're not making it at the end of the interview. You're making it at the end of that 1 minute clip or whatever. So that was one. And Fatima Sana Sheikh, I was interviewing over Zoom during COVID, and I spoke to her about the failure of Thugs of Hindustan. Very similar point, and she spoke about how it broke her. I probed and I probed and I probed, and people felt it was insensitive. And she spoke quite openly, and she spoke about how it just kind of destroyed her career and how she had to rebuild from scratch. But she was open to doing it, and I think that sometimes you have to understand that if the other person at the other end is giving that person that's asking questions, then there is a relationship. When there's an interview, there is something that's happening, and no third person that's watching it is able to be in that room or be in that moment.
Correct.
And if that person's giving you that, it means they know it's coming from a place of empathy, or it's coming from a place of curiosity, or it's coming from a place of kindness, or just wanting to know. And I remember exactly the Juhi thing, that watch the whole interview and get the point of it. Don't be in a hurry to comment. The moment I've asked that question, how insensitive he's going on probing. But that was
See, the
point.
problem
Everyone's
is
so judgy, no?
So it's
But talking about trolls, Malishka, you want to go first, or should I narrate my story of getting trolled? It's a really chotu story, I promise this. I'm not like the Lamba Christopher Nolan story. Basically, I had Sonam Kapoor and Kenny Sebastian on my set for an episode of Social Media Star with Janice. And all of us here have interviewed Sonam.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. So we know that Sonam can say a lot of stuff, like, without really meaning to hurt someone, but she's like just cracking jokes, right? So there was this one picture I showed of Kenny with long hair, and then I showed a picture of Kenny with short hair. And Kenneth Sebastian is one of those comedians who, in addition to being really funny, is also very cute looking, right? So a lot of girls are like, oh my God, Kenny, we love you. So Sonam looked at him and went like, oh, that transition, your barber saved your career. You should thank your barber for, basically where you are today, because that haircut changed your life. And I think then after that, the tone of the interview changed, where I think, everything just sort of started getting like, he was a little defensive, and she was clearly not realizing that, that this guy's gotten offended. And I got it, but I'm trying to also play both of them, right? Because I have two guests who don't know each other from Adam. And same thing, Rajiv. Energy जो है room में वो किसी को पता नहीं चलती, right? And ऐसा भी नहीं है कि I can take Sonam out of the room now and make it awkward and go like, I think you might have insulted this guy without realizing it. Okay, so I have to carry on with the show. And I mean, honestly, to all of Kenneth Sebastian fans, because now there has been a podcast about it, the comments about it, my God, Janice is so, Janice is a Nepo lover and this and that, and oh, she's besties with Sonam, so she will allow her to get away with anything. No, guys, it is just sometimes really difficult कि दो लोग आपके साथ बैठे हैं and you have to manage both of them. It wasn't like I was trying to put Kenny down and put Sonam up. It was just a comment that she made, which even I don't think she realized was offensive. But Kenneth Sebastian fans, that clip and how it traveled, he had to then answer it on his own podcast that why were you so uncomfortable during that interview. And then he said stuff which I would like to correct again. No, it's not because we had personal things to talk about, Kenneth. It's just that that day I couldn't figure out how to manage the energy between you and Sonam. That's it. That's it. Yeah, okay. So that was my story. That was also my clarification because I'm like, randomly दूंगी तो कैसा लगेगा? ये moment use कर लेते हैं.
So this, of course, I'm sure you know. I'm sure I spoke to you about. We're talking about the most controversial interview,
yeah, I know.
Which I stand by even today, and I don't care.
But I think you should tell them the story.
I should.
Yeah, I don't know.
This was the Neeraj Chopra interview. So again, because radio is a mix of, what you're listening to and now what you're seeing as well digitally, and I think I was the only one who got the interview in the radio space.
I had indicated
Jhumka
that the
gira re. My Jhumka is also worried कि मैं गिर जाऊँ, मर जाऊँ, नहीं चाहिए ये story सुनना. Anyway, so we got this interview and it was quite fabulous that we did. This was a few daws after, of course, he won the gold.
Guys, Neeraj Chopra, Olympian Neeraj Chopra, just in case anyone. Yeah.
If you forgot about it and you told me, then what? So what? So yeah, Neeraj Chopra was a big deal. Lovely boy, very very talented.
He's a big deal.
He is a big deal. Yes.
My dad also so cute.
Yeah. Thank you, sister.
So
I just want to say this is sisterhood right here because that's what everyone was talking about. How talented he is, how he got us the gold, and how cute he is, and how his hair is so beautiful. This was pop culture news at that point. It was on news channels. There were people asking him these questions. I'm giving you a little bit of a background so you know where we came from when we did this. Finally, I get an interview with Neeraj Chopra, and there's a group of girls who are all his fans by now. This is after days of bombarding in the news channels, which is basically, oh, his hair, how pretty, how beautiful, how good looking, and does he have a girlfriend? All of this is going on. Now, Neeraj Chopra gets onto a Zoom call with me. We have a Desh Ka Jhanda, which is done. So because again, it's radio and we're on a Zoom call, radio's allowed certain things, like we can have more fun. It's not like a serious, straight-jacketed interview. So we decide that we're going to play several songs to just make him feel good and to bring the rush out and all. So we probably, the first song we played was Chak De India, with people going on behind.
Fair, because wo Olympic jeet ke aaya tha.
Ji. So we did that. We did quite a few songs. And then it came down to the part where we were talking about him being such a sensation, apart from just, apart from winning the gold for us, not just. Apart from winning the gold for us, what a big sensation he is. And we had prepped this song, which is Ude Jab Jab Zulfe Teri. Ta-ding, 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 ta-ding. And it was quite a sweet little tribute to him. The girls behind and all were like, and again, let me once again remind you, it was all over the news. Everyone was talking about his hair and shampoo and ta-da-da-da. It was going on.
हाँ तो ऐसा नहीं है सिर्फ मलिश्का और उसकी
girls ने किया था. और अगर किया भी होता तो मुझे नहीं लगता कि इतनी बड़ी बात होती. The thing was, again, as we know, interviews like this, when they're done, there's a lot of PR around it. There's a machinery that eventually, before, after, tells you, no, this is not okay, that is not okay. All of this is clear. They loved the interview, including Neeraj Chopra loved the interview. This clip was the clip that got put out first. And then people started commenting, which was really lovely because people saw how cute it was. And all you need is one bad apple to drop something and say, nahi, isko is nazariye se dekho. And that is exactly what happened. It was beautiful. People were like, oh God, it's so loving, it's so endearing, it's so nice to see our national champion in this light. But then, suddenly what am I going to call them? Nefarious, some TikTok accounts who obviously wanted to skew it in another direction because, oh hey, this is our boy, he has won us the gold medal and how dare you, started happening. But they took so many different narratives. It was ridiculous what happened after that. It went down from, shaming to say a few words to me.
Objectification, sexualizing,
age shaming. It went through different narratives. Like
basically, I mean, I think you got massively trolled because they said that you're sort of instead of doing a more straight-jacketed interview, like you said,
which
it was more like, oh, you're seducing or you're trying to,
you're flirting,
flirting with him.
Which which anyway is a way that a lot of interviews go in this space of things. But it got really ugly. So it got really ugly to a point when, imagine you are celebrating someone, and it's not that that's the only thing we did. That was a small bit of the larger thing that we did, which was basically everything from his, regime, how he stays motivated, what does he do, this large interview. Again, out of context, just this part where we said, oh, hey, the girls want to do a little bit for you because everyone's talking about it. And he was shyly smiling. So now people have figured out, not only am I upset on his behalf, I've even figured out what he's feeling. So people are like, oh, he's looking like he's so uncomfortable. And do you know, at every step we kept stopping and saying, hey, are you okay? Are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? Even once the interview was over, are you okay with this? Everything went through. So obviously, if there was, like we discussed, you know how many times film stars have come and said, ye mat rakhna, ye mat rakhna, ye please kaat do, maine galti se kar diya, ya I'm not comfortable. Nothing like that. And this became a big deal. And suddenly, just वो दृष्टिकोण बदलने से वो चश्मे जो उन्होंने पहना है
the perspective fully,
and there was a kind of people who started doing that and started making the larger narrative sound like that. And then for the next 2 or 3 days it was so bad because I remember my marketing head calling me and asked me, do you want to take it down? I said, what are we saying if we take it down? Are we saying that we're wrong? I don't think that there's anything wrong. There's 2 ways of looking at it. And so we kept it on. But those 3 days, the way it was like a dog whistle for the kind of people, for a time.
This just brings me to it because I feel like a lot of people commented on how he was looking in the interview. Yeah. And we've all faced this, right? Yeah. That sometimes switching even we don't, like we're looking at the whole interview in like a larger perspective and we're not realizing that someone's going to hold on to one random expression of a person looking irritable and say that this is how they felt throughout the interview. Because I feel like a lot of this has happened so many times.
Was he or his team at all at any point during this process and after it came out and after the trolls went up, were they upset? Did you get anything?
Not. What I would have liked was some solidarity because during the and after the interview, they were so excited about it. They were all very happy. I'm telling you, I spoke to them because even I was like, oh, hey, because it is a nutcut scene.
Correct.
I'm not saying it's not. It's a nutcut wala scene. But as long as you're comfortable and we're not doing anything out of the line, it was, I'm telling you, everything was taken care of. And that is why I kept wondering what is going on with the public. And then I realized that there are factions who will always tell the public how to think, who will skew a narrative in a certain way. Because before that started, like TikTok accounts suddenly going nuts on my thing and then more people following. Before that, everything was beautiful. The comments were, that is so sweet to see a glimpse. And that is what we do, right? This is at least what I like to do. I want to give you a glimpse of your film star as a human being as well. I want you to see that they are human. I want you to see that they can have fun. And I want you to see that someone can do that with them on Bring Up. And that is what
Those are called concept interviews now, by the way.
This is always...
unfortunately, I don't know if you feel like this. I feel like, unfortunately, such a big part today of doing an interview is about how people react. That you can't even just let it go. Like, I don't know if this is comforting in any way or I'm being naive. I'm looking at Anu listening to the story. Janice seems to know this. I didn't even know about this.
I didn't.
So sometimes, and because I've been in this position, I've been in this place where you feel like everyone's looking at you and it really feels like the whole world is judging you.
And you're so like...
But it's really not. It takes some time and some perspective to realize that it's actually... But I think when we use, and I know it because when we use social media and comments and number of likes and number of comments to validate what you do, then that same lens you will apply when you're kind of assessing whether this is something that people have been offended by or not. So 800 great comments is what makes us feel good, but then those 800, when they're 800 negative, that will also
not 800, it takes 200.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Actually,
fewer.
It takes 5.
But in the great thing that came out of all of this was, Neena Chopra was interviewed a lot, and you guys haven't seen it, but this was the most famous interview of them all. So this
यहाँ पे लगा देंगे. All of these interviews will be linked, guys. And I feel like it's really important to give you guys context and for you to make up your own mind on it. Because we are sitting here explaining some of these more controversial interviews because I feel like where else are we going to explain it, guys?
But Rajiv, nobody saw the rest of the interview and it was so annoying. I was like, at least look at the rest.
Yeah, but no.
That doesn't matter.
When they comment at the end of that bit. They don't wait till the end of the interview to see it in
Not
one
once
इतना
in
काम कोई नहीं
You
करेगा.
know, comments में तो they are so smart. They'll be like, go straight to 9.10 TC. This is what you want to see. This is what you came. Who came here from Kenny Sebastian's podcast? This is the clip you want to see. I'm like, wow, you have just like. It doesn't matter how many millions that entire interview has, but that sudden that one YouTube will show you this is the point. This is the point that's gone straight up. But let's talk about more positive things. And I'm going to say we cannot say Shah Rukh Khan and Amitabh Bachchan for this segment. Okay, no. Because otherwise, सब story उनके बारे में ही होगी. I want to talk about Shah Rukh.
We have to talk about Shah Rukh.
Okay, fine. For Anupama and for Balishka shall make it. But I was going to say, who is like your, in recent times, your most favorite to interview? Like someone you feel like, I look forward to sitting down with this person.
Shah
Oh
Rukh.
God, you
There is only one.
guys.
There is only one.
Really? Can I add to that list though?
Yes.
I mean, among the newer generation, the one I really like interviewing now is Janhvi Kapoor. Okay, I genuinely look forward to, I've sat down with her now, I think twice or thrice, and I feel like I don't know what's going to happen in those interviews. At what point she's going to put her legs up, at what point she's going to tie her beautifully done hair into an amboda, at what point she's going to remove and throw her earrings, or what the conversation is going to be. And I find that beautifully refreshing because initially, like I think now people have begun to wonder if it's an act, but I'm saying that when I'm sitting with her, I find that her energy is really, really positive and very unfiltered. I'm not saying she's not thinking, but I'm feeling like she's giving you genuine answers.
But actually, to me, those are the best subjects. When you're interviewing someone who just comes willing to give you what you ask for. Exactly. I mean, like, they're not holding back. They're just there to have an honest chat. And sometimes when those people are not, like Ranbir Kapoor is that for me. I've loved interviewing him. He's not the greatest. I mean, he's not. Interviews also about how not eloquent, but how interestingly you speak, right? And Shah Rukh is that. Shah Rukh is great in everything.
Shah Rukh can talk to rock and make it seem interesting.
Ranbir's voice can be a drawl, but what he says has always been so honest that it makes up for the, like, if you just listen to Ranbir, it can get very boring because the voice is it's a monotone. But I've done some of my best interviews with him because I feel like he will give you like he doesn't hold back when he comes in to have an honest chat, and maybe that's what you mean.
My favorite interview of yours with Ranbir is, I think you went to his grandmom's house in Chembur, and his dogs were around, and this is like on the heels of the Katrina Kaif breakup, and like he was very candid, and I was so stumped.
Sometimes when, I'm sure we'll come to this, it's when they don't have a film to promote that you might get
Those
the
are
best.
the best.
Yes. Those are the best.
But they do it a little
But now that's
rarely.
become increasingly less. It's less and less.
It's
right?
impossible.
It's
No,
impossible
guys,
because there
I
are
mean,
so many people to
I'm being really honest.
And we have as much, and I think journalists and the audience, if you like, has as much to blame for that. I mean, we got to that place where, we blew it.
Okay, I'm just going to say this on the record. I'm not being immodest or anything, but I actually don't like having anyone on my show, Social Media Star with Janice, if they actually have something to promote.
Yeah,
because
but
I
How
will
do you
not
still manage to get them?
Huh?
How do you still manage to get them?
I don't know. The show's numbers speak for itself. Subtle.
It's
flex. I'm just being really honest, guys. I feel like if you want to come and promote something, I'm not going to ask you a single damn question about it.
But that's your concept. That's the concept of your show. It's sold. You did well.
And also,
Otherwise
maybe
they
I
come
don't have a
around-
knife hanging over my head that I have to produce content every
Absolutely.
week. Maybe that's one of the reasons.
Because when they come to you willingly is when they have a movie to promote, and that's when you're like, okay, let's get things around it. But they're mostly in a hurry, as they are these days. They want to move from-
You do the roundtables.
Yeah.
Which are just fantastic. I mean, because you have so many different energies, and it's almost, they never sit together to talk about craft or process or anything. And then when you do get them in a room, I mean, we did one in December with like Kamal Hassan and Rajamouli and Lokesh Kanakraj, and he was just like, just to be in that room is.
And these are not even people who do interviews very frequently.
They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. So it was just like so lovely. And speaking of Janhvi, so we did an actors roundtable last year, and I thought that she was so, what you said, she was so refreshing because she talked about, whatever. She has some, I don't know, 18 million people on IG. I don't even know. It's some like really crazy amount. Yeah, it's an obnoxious. Maybe it's way more than that. Yeah,
You're giving
I'm
the wrong
totally blowing
numbers.
this. But when we talked about that, she said, but that doesn't convert. Otherwise, Millie
Correct.
would have seen fuller houses. And
Yeah.
for her to even acknowledge that,
Yeah.
that it doesn't convert. Because all of us are
Yeah.
just about, oh, uski following kya hai, iski following kya hai, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I find all of them are beautiful to interview when they're just stepping into the industry. That's one of my favorite times. I remember.
Or the worst
Alia
interviews.
Bhatt. Really, I love them because they're so uninhibited.
You
They're
get some
fresh.
glimpse of who the real person
Yes.
is at that time.
And
I
then when
guess,
you
yeah.
listen to it later, it's like, oh, hey, she's... Because then after that, they're too guarded. Then it's like, oh, hey, I can't say this, I won't say that. But another batch of people that are good to interview, since you're not allowing us to say Shah Rukh Khan, who's absolutely
Yeah, I just feel like,
fabulous,
guys,
by the way.
because really Shah
Who's
Rukh
just
could
the
talk.
king
He's
of the
the
top.
king, yes.
Yeah.
Shah Rukh could
He can
really talk to a
about-
tree,
Yeah.
and I would watch that
I was
That's
conversation.
really mean and makes us feel like we don't bring anything to these things. But yeah,
But
probably.
you
written a book on
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know when you're talking to Shah Rukh Khan that it's Shah Rukh.
It is Shah Rukh.
I do,
agree.
because I have seen journalists sometimes ask him the most pakao questions in the world, and he will
Yeah,
give
and
such
he'll
a
find
beautiful
something.
answer. So I mean,
How
guys,
did you
I
do it,
love
Shah
you
Rukh?
all. I mean, I love that you all bring, and some of my favorite interviews have been watching you guys interview Shah Rukh, but I'm just saying Shah Rukh is Shah Rukh for a reason.
I remember a press conference for one of his movies where this journalist just got up and said, I love you, Shah Rukh. I'm like, wait, this is like
Yeah,
a...
this is
We're
not-
journalists. Just keep it together.
I know you haven't been to press conferences lately, right? This is all that happens nowadays.
I'm going to hold hands, guys, as we say this because, we are going to come to that next.
Yeah.
But wait, I wanted you to finish what you were going to say among the newer batch.
Yeah. So we're not talking about Shah Rukh. and
No,
how-
no, Shah Rukh and
No,
Bachchan.
we're not
he offered
allowed.
to
We're
live-
not allowed.
Yeah.
My God. Shah Rukh and how he spoke.
We love you, Shah Rukh.
Yeah.
We love you. Yeah.
How he spoke about what he sees from his house when the lovers are making out on that. No, you don't want to. Okay, fine. Your loss. Shah Rukh,
Should I
we
just
love you.
call this podcast a
Shah-
dedication to Shah Rukh Khan?
But I think in this generation, if anyone's interviewed Shah Rukh, they'll constantly tell you that he's the best one to
I
sit down with.
fully
His philosophy, his love, you can play his sound bites forever, he's eternal. But amongst the new lot, the South Indian boys, the ones who are, they're unfiltered, they're fun. Like I interviewed Nani, who is a more
Yeah.
recent phenomenon. It was
Nani.
really...
Nani. Oh, he's
Nani.
lovely.
He's lovely.
Yeah.
There's a humanness and earthiness to them, which again is one of the things I love to bring out in film stars. So.
My God, I'm such a huge Vijay Sethupathi fan, and
He's
I got
fab.
to interview him at one of the, backstage at one of the Amazon things, and he was the first one to come in, and so I got a good 5 minutes with him. And of course, like you said, we're journalists, we're not fans, but so we never want to come across as a fan.
Too late.
But so I think there was a wisecrack made on stage about how he wasn't as dressed up as Shahid or something. There was a Farzi launch, and so I talked about that, and then he's just very politely, very sweetly, not creepily, just looked at me and said, "You're also very well dressed, and thank you for asking me that. I would like to address it." And I'm like, it was just, I don't know, the way he said it was just so regular. It was, I don't know, something very lovely. You're right. There's something very
there's something
authentic
very
about
authentic.
the conversation.
Even Devrakonda, remember? I mean, whether
Yeah.
his film did well or not, there's a very real humanness to them, which is not super prepped, at
Yeah.
least yet.
I invited Vijay for our last Film Critics Guild Awards, and he said, Madam, I stopped going to awards many years ago. I don't know what to wear.
It's a real problem. It really is.
I just said, you're just fab.
You're coming to film critics guild. You know how critics dress? Whatever you
I
will
look
be.
like one of yours. Low.
Oh my God, I love that. Okay, so you have said, who was your pick for best interview in this sort of generation? Don't say Shah Rukh.
Ranbir.
Ranbir. I said Janvi.
I'd say Ranveer.
Ranveer.
Yeah. I've had some lovely, lovely interviews. with
Okay,
him.
great. And you are going with who from the South batch? Are you saying Nani?
Okay, yeah, I'll go with now.
Okay, super. So we all have our picks. Great, guys. Let's come to the last part, which I really, really want to discuss.
What? It's over?
Yeah, we've come to the last part. Are actors too coached and managed right now? And on Film Companion, Ratna Pataksha did a beautiful interview with Sneha from your team. And she spoke about how now this entourage culture and someone is holding your chai, someone is coming and touching you up, is it too much? Also, I don't really care about the hair and makeup teams and the styling teams as much as I care about, I think, what happens behind the scenes a lot with the PR teams and the manipulation
Ye
of it
bolo,
all.
ye mat bolo.
I'm going to speak from personal experience when I feel like it's a lot of, often I feel like now actors are getting a bad rep more and more, sometimes because their teams are actually not doing a good enough job of maybe communicating what is required. Has this been your experience too? Wow, long pause, guys. I will fill dead noise until.
No, you know, Janice, I started at a time where we would just walk into studios and there would be an actor there and you would just say, hey, what's up? And you would just sit there and chat. Yeah. And I know we can't say Shah Rukh, but I've done interviews with Shah Rukh. Like you could just text message him.
You still
Every
can.
time Anupama Chopra said Shah Rukh in this interview, I think someone needs to do a shot. I will do a shot of coffee right now. Do a shot of coffee. Everyone who's
but even somebody at that level of fame, like you could just talk, right, Rajiv?
Yeah.
You know?
So she's absolutely, you know, but you should continue.
I'm just saying that I feel like there is too much minder energy around everybody now. And I honestly, I can't tell you, I'm not in this position, I'm not in this situation. I know anything you do and say can be held against you now forever and forever. And it's awful and it's terrible and it's the time we live in. But I feel like somewhere it has to affect you when so many people are just,
completely
minding you.
Yeah, I mean, also my point is that these are full-grown adults.
Exactly.
Do you really need someone like that many people around you and constantly talking into your ear and constantly like, you know, giving you their POV and saying, say this, but don't say that, do this, but don't do that. I mean, then you're essentially stripping that person away of their authenticity at some level. No?
I want to say, and I think I have a slightly different perspective because now I work with
You're
actors.
at the other end,
Yes, of course, there are people that tell you what to stay away from, but that's because of the times we're in. There's nobody else faces the repercussions of what they end up saying in completely a different context. They do need, unfortunately, there is some amount of wariness that you have to exercise. And having said that, I also believe that you can't really coach someone into what to say and what not to say if you're a smart interviewer. If he's sitting across from a smart interviewer, by smart I don't mean someone who's chalu, who's looking for controversy. I'm just saying someone who's bright. Yeah. If you're bright, all of those things fall by the wayside. And if you're a bright even if you're a bright actor, you will enjoy that conversation because you know the other person is there to seek something pure and something sincere, and you will give that. I don't think actors beyond a point can be managed and told what to do and what not to do, and the ones that do that, those are boring interviews anyway, because they don't have a mind of their own. But can we also really address that there are some bad interviewers? I mean, there are some very bad interviewers. Why are we putting the onus only on the actors?
Sure.
You know, if you've gone either with the agenda of seeking out controversy, seeking out some, trying to create some trouble because it's going to trend and because you'll get a great headline or you'll get a great talking point, then you're going to get a very actor, and they smell it. You know, we don't give actors enough credit. I mean, even the ones that you don't think are bright actors are bright
smart
people.
Cookies,
No, and you can smell it. You can smell why a person's asking you a particular question. I genuinely believe you can ask the toughest questions if you do it with some skill, some tact, and some sincerity.
High five, 100%, 200%.
I think you can.
There are no bad questions as long as, because if you're going in with an agenda ki, mujhko to ye sansanikhez headline
and then
chahiye.
they can smell it, and they're fully entitled to not give you that. Because they know where, they know exactly your plan of how you intend to use that. But if you ask the uncomfortable questions out of curiosity or out of a genuine
the right
concern
intent,
or whatever,
I think.
you'll get the answer. You may not get exactly what you want, but you shouldn't be going there knowing what you want anyway. I mean, then it's not an interview, right? Then you've gone there planned because I want them to say this. And the moment I got it in your head, I got my promo. I mean, like, and we've all done that. We've all done that. I mean, we've all done that. In my head, I
always know what
is
my promo. I always know what is my promo.
But those are, I mean, to me, those are not the fun ones. The fun ones is when you genuinely go out of curiosity. You go because you want to ask some things, and you're entitled, and you're absolutely entitled as a journalist to ask the uncomfortable questions, things that are controversial, that are in the news, that they need to take a stand on something, whatever. But the question is, do you want the truth? Do you want the honest answer, or do you want a headline?
When I say I know what my promo is, I mean after I've shot. Because I
No,
feel like
yaar,
you're-
I know it. When you're doing the interview also, you know.
You
yaar.
know
like,
that this was a
You
good
know
one.
this was the one, yeah.
Yeah,
you
but
know.
as soon as you finished an interview, you know your highlights and you know that that's going to be my promo. But also, since he said, can we address that there are bad interviewers, can we also address the fact that most interviewers have become fans? I am serious. I have been, like, I feel like the agenda now is not gotcha headlines. It's like, kitne selfies, kitne reels, and how can I, like, I mean, I'm serious, guys. I find it very uncomfortable.
It's also a sign of the time. That's what I mean. Like, these interviews are not going on anywhere else but Instagram. Half these interviews are going on. So then I don't know. I mean, like, you know, it's
Do what you have to.
You kind of
Okay, so I'll tell you the story, right? So when I was entertainment editor at Times, now I remember one of my reporters had gone to interview Dharmendra. Now her family and she were lifelong fans of Dharmendra, and she came back and her opening was, today, one of my life's biggest dreams has come true. I have sat down with my childhood hero, with the legend, with this. I can't believe I'm getting to interview you. And she's like, and Dharmendra is lovely. Of course, he was very like, whatever. But my point is, I had to cut that opening. And we had a massive argument about it, and the reporter was not happy at all. And I said, but do you realize we're a news channel? Yeah. You come across like a fan who I've sent to interview him. Your questions are fine, but that opening, and this was like maybe some 6, 7, 8 years ago, and now I see that is the norm.
Yeah.
It is, but that is in fact encouraged. I think that the more personal you are, the more, I mean, it seems to be encouraged. But you can do. I mean, I remember going to interview Mark Hamill in Tokyo or something.
Subtle
I mean, this
flex.
is Star Wars.
No, he's the biggest fan, right?
Like the biggest thing in my life.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't know how. I was really nervous that I will not misbehave or behave. I was never nervous that I'll behave like a fan, but that I'll just forget my questions and I'll like be bumbling and stuff. But you can do it, yeah. I mean, I did the interview and then I asked for a picture. I don't think I've ever asked for a picture. Like, there's a picture I need.
Pehle you can't
you can't do that.
Yeah.
And they can sense it, yeah. You can pretend to be, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can do it. I think you can, and you can even make that part of, also Star Wars is like the canon, yeah. It's like you can say, you know, I grew up. I mean, if I was 2 years old when I saw you, I can say that. But it doesn't need to be fawning, and it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be like.
No, it doesn't need to be. It needs to be a question. There needs to be a question there. I mean, that needs to lead to a question, not that I'm just such a big fan.
Yeah.
And now he's like, okay,
Now you just tell
join
me.
the queue. Like, you know.
Can I tell you an interview I did with Daniel Craig? You remember we were on the
On
same
the Bond,
junket?
yeah.
Again,
On the
guys,
Bond
subtle
junket.
flex.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill.
These are all
Daniel
junkets
Craig.
we've done together.
Yes.
And of course, Daniel Craig, I mean, he had just done the Bond where he had
Yeah.
come out in those blue trunks,
yeah.
right? And we're all like in a state of shock.
Blue trunks.
and I remember my son watching this interview, and I don't remember what the conversation was, but he made some joke, and I laughed like too hard. He's like, "You're only laughing because he's hot, right, Mom?"
Kids are cruel.
Listen, we've all sat across from men and women who were going like, so much in awe of this person or so good looking. But I'm just saying, at least while we're being journalists or while we're
Yeah, you
interviewing them,
can't.
keep it together.
And the question was whether they're very doctored. And at one level, I'll say for sure, because the machinery is large, it's around them. You know, you can put rules in place कि भाई नहीं मेरा studio है या whatever. No, 2 लोग से ज़्यादा खड़े नहीं रहेंगे hair makeup के लिए. But I feel they come in only very often, and they're doing so many interviews in a day, right? Their stories are similar. They're saying the same things in some spaces. Sometimes they have to think it through. The tiredness, all of that. Plus, I think they need someone to. Sometimes it happens that I feel like someone else is also thinking on their behalf. कि अरे इसके साथ तो मेरी बहुत बनती है तो मैं पता नहीं क्या बोल बैठूं इसे. तो कोई और सोच के बताए कि भाई ऐसे ना करे. However, this hasn't happened in our studios ever. There have been attempts to ask for questions in advance, which we've said. Has that happened ever? I'm like, no. Especially because a lot of interviews, especially radio, digital वाले जो ऐसे थोड़ा free flowing होते हैं, क्योंकि उसमें मस्ती भी होता है, मज़ा भी होता है. थोड़ा अलग टाइप का भी होता है तो you can't ask me for questions in advance. ये तो नहीं होगा. Sometimes they've asked for it, which has never gone down well. But even today, if you interview a star from yesteryears, you will see the purity in the way they tell you stories and in the way they express themselves
100%.
about how they're so open with things. They're okay to say things. Now everything is like, oh heck, I'm saying this, and 10 years from now this will come to bite me in the ass. And this is for all of us. I think a lot of even interviewers, you never know. Okay, 10 years from now, what aged badly and what will come to you and say, "Bhai, isne aise." Because now I see this happening a lot in the West.
Oh God, yeah.
So I was always like, "मैं तो Ellen बनूंगी एक दिन वगैरह वगैरह." मैं तो Oprah और Ellen का combination.
We're Ellen fans.
हाँ. And then you know what happened. I mean, and suddenly I'm looking at her interviews and saying, "Damn, I saw this interview and I didn't think there was anything wrong. What is wrong with me?" You know, for example.
What has been wrong with Ellen's interviews? No, I thought it was her management that was fucked up.
You guys need to chat?
No, she went towards the end. It went down as how she's unkind towards people. Her
But that's all
employees.
behind the scenes.
And no, even on screen, right? So many of her interviews get.
Then I
picked
guess
out.
that lens gets applied to everything.
Yeah. So you never know. 10 years from now, this chat that we're having. So we just have to grow a thick skin. You never know.
God,
Janice,
did we say anything?
What is that? Would you?
Anticipatory bail.
अभी से ही ले लो.
अभी से ले लो.
अभी से ही हम लोग कह रहे हैं
10 साल बाद
कि ये
होगा जब
10
आपका आइलैंड होगा और आप निकल चुके होंगे ना.
I mean, okay.
The next time you do a reel with somebody,
From
it'll be
your
like,
mouth, from
तूने
your
reel
mouth.
कैसे बनाया? You were sitting.
Rajiv, come on. One island is possible.
I don't own the company.
I bless you, Rajiv.
चलो जाते जाते जो अभी इस फील्ड में आ रहे हैं और सेलिब्रिटीज़ के साथ बैठने वाले हैं, उनको कोई एक टिप कि ये हमेशा करना और ये कभी मत करना.
Research करो यार.
हाय अनु.
Please, just watch the movies, dig up old interviews. That's your job.
It is really your job. Number one tip to everyone.
Exactly.
Research करो अपना यार. Study करने में कोई problem नहीं है. Like I'm not even joking with you guys also. I watched some of your older interviews, your styles, because I'm just like, it feels like a superpower when you go on set and you studied the person.
You have to.
No?
You have to. I just don't see any other way of doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done this for so long, but there's no other way of doing it.
Okay, what's one thing we should never do?
Make it more about yourself than the person.
Okay.
An interview is not about you.
Yeah.
You're there to listen. So go in with curiosity and information.
Okay, got it. So study and don't make it about yourself. Okay, cool. Rajiv?
Be prepared is absolutely true, but then I feel like then you're asking about journalists. I also think that if this is about interviewers and you could be someone who's not a journalist, be prepared. I mean, know someone's work. I mean, don't be in the room without knowing, but also be interesting. I agree that don't make it all about yourself, but I think that a great interview is also one where the person who's answering the questions is receiving something, and that I mean. And that is just an interesting person to talk to. Be interested and be interesting. That doesn't necessarily mean make it about you, but ask fun questions. Make it fun. And I know that is a dangerous thing to say because then it means play games. I was talking to someone.
Hey man,
lately
I play
and they told
games
me
on every interview.
I was talking to a bunch of actors and they said they were promoting a show and they said we did an interview over a game of Uno. So I was like, wow, it's come to that. But yeah, just be interesting.
I love it. I feel like I also know this interview. I'm looking at Anu for a reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Be
And
interesting. Don't go in assuming you know what they're going to say because then you're kind of not open to the possibilities of what could come out of it.
Okay. Malishka?
I'm thinking. I think one of the things you definitely don't do. Okay, one of the things that I think you have to remember is what we've discussed earlier, that you are an interviewer. You can be a fanboy or fangirl, you can be whatever. You can even be one who's aspiring to get in the movies, like I do. But I have never, ever done it on the job. Like I find a lot of people who will go ऐसे मतलब सर करके ऐसे bitch जाते हैं.
अच्छा.
And you, हाँ मैंने कहा तुम bitch क्यों रहे हो भाई साहब, तुम्हारा इंटरव्यू कोई नहीं सुनेगा क्योंकि दिख ही रहा है कि तुम इतने लल्लू हो कि तुमको ज़्यादा पड़ी है कि सर एंड में मेरे को ऐसे मतलब सेल्फी तो ले ही लेगा वो. आजकल के ज़माने में सेल्फी, तुम रील बताओ, तुमको बजर बट्टू की तरह नचवाना, जो सब हो जाएगा, मगर अपना इंटरव्यू जो है ना उसके वक्त ऐसे ज़बान का कारपेट बना के उनको मत करो.
Okay, that's really graphic.
That's what radio teaches you because you're talking to make pictures in people's heads. But be respectful, and I feel like the intent has to be right. तो उसमें एक हो जाता है. ये मेरा do and not do दोनों इसी में आ गया.
Okay.
है ना?
Okay. I feel like, okay, I'm just going to add my last 2 cents. I have a slightly different take from you about the interview. Is like, I feel like now interviews need to be conversations. So I feel like what Rajiv said, where if you are interesting and if you do have a POV maybe on their film, on their work, or on the way they present themselves to the paps, to the media in general, and you have that POV, make it a conversation, because I feel like that interview style is slowly dying. People want to have conversations. Sure. So that is like my do in addition to research. And I feel like also, if you study them enough, you will have conversation part. You will have like a little like, I know what you're talking about, like many times, and you can then comment on pop culture, social media trends, etc., etc. Don't would be, I think, which I need to constantly tell myself, is overlap with the person. Like you're being recorded, you will have to edit it, and then you will be cursing yourself.
This is a general rule in life.
Printing interviews ke liye nahi hai ye. I'm talking about like broadcast interviews and video interviews and radio interviews.
Which we're demonstrating right now.
Yeah. Editing में तुमको इतना problem होगा. मेरे editors मेरे को इतना गाली देते तो that is my
I've learned to laugh silently. Because I used to go, I do that. And
thanks,
people,
Anupama.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and now go.
That's what's happening.
Because what do you do?
But I know what she's saying, because I used to have the yes, yeah, and it can get damn irritating, as I've learned from comments. Just like nod, but even nodding too much is a problem apparently. Stop reading comments.
Oh God.
But listen, I really think, sorry, before you go, I think you should, since there are such manje hue interviewers here.
She's only pointing to two of you all.
No, I said this. Excuse me,
all for
I'm part of this.
I'm kidding.
But this thing is, I feel like, may I ask a question? I know this is, I don't know.
No, of course,
but
ask
I feel
now.
like I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to give a few tips to film stars to do the interview right. Because come on, it can't always be our fault. Have you met those people who suck your energy out and give you nothing in return?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. Like, I want to do a whole section on this. So, like, is there anything that you would, like tell a film star how to be during an interview?
See,
I think they need to learn.
I'm hearing more and more in the last couple of years that promotions is the part they hate the most.
Yeah.
Okay?
I understand.
And truthfully, you have to work around that. It is part of your job.
Yeah.
So it is part of your job to market the film.
Exactly.
And so come to it with some joy. And so if we have to do better, I'm fully with that. But you do too.
Yes.
In that case, then I want to add, she's absolutely right. Maybe an actor needs to be a little bit more involved, and then pick the days that you're doing the Janta promotional interviews and give time to the people who you're going to get meaningful conversations with, and invest in that. Make that the first interview of the day.
Yeah.
Give it that hour that it needs. Have that conversation. Don't treat that as your on your promotional campaign. Let's start the day with that, and then do your rubbish, which you know is going to be rubbish. But yeah, like even the rubbish ones. The word, Shah Rukh Khan even makes those interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like even those rubbish ones are so there's a way to do it.
Absolutely.
There's a way to do it.
I'm going to do a short because someone again said Shah Rukh Khan.
Shah Rukh Khan. But imagine a man at the height of his career, the peak of his career, giving you interviews. Everyone has a good thing to say about him. Yeah. Then it can't be so difficult. I had one guy who actually came into my studio. He does it. He put his legs on the table, Janice, in front of me. And this is not who you think it is also. Yeah, because there's one particular person we would think of to do that. He put his legs up like this. And I was like, are you serious? I don't know whether he was on because, and there's a group of people. It's not just me. And we were all like shocked. We did not let him rest. That was spoken about. I called him out on it right in front of him. I don't think he knew what the heck was going on. We called him out for days and days and days. And then I met him when I was doing a sports interview on a sports channel. And he was so sheepish about it. That interview is still online. I'm not going to name who it is. But he's apologized ever since. And it doesn't matter because I think a lot of film stars need to learn a lot of things, like just return energy. You know where you're going. Like do your work as well. We do ours. I can't keep having you coming in with an attitude or aaj main monosyllabic banunga. Amir Khan, for that matter, he comes in, he does this thing which I suppose all of them can't do. He will give you a day. He goes to one place a day. Yeah. So it is.
But like do it.
You guys, if you're ever going to shoot with Amir Khan, you better be up to date on your GK. True story. Amir Khan's come to do an interview for Dhoom 3. He's come with Abhishek, Katrina, and Uday. And Amir was on a strict diet. And so he said, we're at the Times Now office, we're sitting in a different room, and Amir is eating, he's eating his salmon and just, I remember, 4 pieces of asparagus or beans. I have no idea. And he's like, come na Janice, sit. I'm like, okay. And he's like, so you watched the news today, tell me what Sushma Swaraj said in Parliament. Na, I made and I'm telling you, I am so glad that I'm such a news junkie. I was able to tell him. Then he's like, acha, but do you think it's going to get passed in Parliament and this and that? I'm like, imagine someone who doesn't know, they're going to be like, oh my God, I got to run.
That would have been me.
That would have been me too.
No, but just to add to what Malishka said about people returning energy and being badly behaved, what happens sometimes is when you make actors do 10, 15 interviews and quote-unquote concept interviews जहाँ पे खाना है, कहीं पे game खेलना है, कहीं पे ये करना है, वो करना है.
Everyone's figuring it out, yeah.
No, I'm just going to finish this.
We're living in times when things are moving so fast. I think even PR people and studio, everyone's just like, you're throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah,
no, but I'm going to finish this story. Is like, people tend to then become cocky. Some people will get bored, some people will give you monosyllabic answers, and some people will become downright cocky because now they're just irritated. Yeah. And but I'm sorry, I recently had this experience with very, very young actors who were promoting a horror film. And like, you know, so of course we all went in where we've been told concept lekar aana. Concept lekar aa gaye, but aapke actors to matlab bilkul disinterested hai. And then they were making fun of me, jokes at my expense, and I'm like, boss, I'm sorry, this is my YouTube channel, it ain't gonna go up. This is my rule.
But I think the whole process needs to be overhauled. This will not, I mean, if you're doing a deep dive, it's not gonna get solved at the interviewer and the actor level. The people in between who are facilitating these things also need to understand that your old ideas and now that one concept worked, every concept not gonna work. I mean, like, get people to do what they're good at. Listen to the interviewer because he has an idea why he thinks this will work, and let him do that. And it doesn't need to, everything doesn't need to be the same. And it won't. And if everyone does concept interviews, they will not more than likely it won't work. So yeah, I mean, playing Uno and Carom. I know a friend who told me she was an interviewer. She said we did this over Carom. I was like,
hey Rajiv, yeah, it might just work, yeah. People are looking for new formats.
Of course it might. I mean, no, when we did that round table and stuff, of course there was, you know, everyone in the West had done it. So when we did the first time, you don't know if it's going to work. Also, for different reasons, not so much the format. You don't know if these actors are going to be that willing to just give, right, and engage with each other.
But you've done such good ones.
You know, we got really lucky. When you do it first, you get lucky. I mean, we just got really lucky sometimes. Yeah.
But now I get actors who just won't sit with other actors.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, I remember when we did the first time the male actors, we had Ranbir and Amir and Irfan and Nawaz, and that was the dream. And I'm talking about the year of Barfi, and it was, and we didn't even do an actresses because, and again, this is where we should call out ourselves. I was like, 4 girls are never going to sit together. And the next year we took a show, we given it a and they did.
Yeah, they did.
Kangana and Deepika and Vidya and Nimrit. And you realize you censored yourself. You assumed that they wouldn't. But it was new. It was the first time. They came willing to give. Now you can't get it.
Like, look at if Janice censored herself. Would the 3 of us be sitting here today?
Yeah.
Us massive stars.
What a great place to end. As 4 stars, I give this interview 1, 2, 3, 4. And from the audience, 5 stars.
5 from the stars who are
Unlike Rajiv, who once threw an anda at the camera for a...
No, this was fun. Thank you. Thank you.
But no, guys, thank you so much for being like so candid and like, you know, sharing all your lovely experiences on set and off it. And like comment section mein, everyone is only going to be guessing, wo kaun tha jisne aise baitha. Kaun tha?
Unless you know it, let us know.
If you figure it out, it's not like we're ever going to tell you. But thank you guys. First episode over. Comment section में जो अच्छा लगा, जो खराब लगा, जो include होना चाहिए था, नहीं हुआ, whatever you want us to cover next, please let me know. This is a pilot episode. Alright guys, and with that it's a wrap.
I'm doing what we do on radio.
Yes,
clapping for Janice for some.